Hey guys and girls, it's Philip McKernan, and thank you for tuning in. Today I wanted to bring a conversation to the table that is one that I even question whether I should do it, because there's a little fear in me around how it might actually be received. And that is the conversation around unexpressed emotion. And I'm going to start there, and then I'll kind of escalate into the emotion that I see that is most prevalent in the world of entrepreneurship. And I will probably, let's go back a little bit in terms of my own story, and maybe to give you some personal context to hopefully allow you to create your own. So I remember going to my first therapy session many, many years ago, and I've shared this story before, but I remember doing it through the lens of just going to see what it's all like and what it's all about. And that's probably the quickest way I can distill it all down. In other words, I wasn't going for me because I didn't need therapy. I was going because I was just curious about what this therapy stuff looked like and sounded like, so I'd have a better understanding. And long story short, I remember going into the room, and I remember sitting in the wrong chair, and the therapist came in, and I think he made me a cup of tea at the time, and it was all quite casual. And he looked at me and he said, "You're sitting in my chair." And as I stood up and I walked across and I sat near the chair, I noticed there was a massive box of Kleenex next to the chair I chose not to sit at. And now I was sitting there, and I looked down the Kleenex and I could see it, and I was thinking to myself, well, I mean, I'm not going to cry if that's kind of the expectation here. And I kind of crossed my arms and I crossed my legs and I got pretty defensive, and I kind of buckled my seat, and I got ready to rock and roll in my defensive way. And I think I lasted maybe 45 seconds, whereby all he said was, "Tell me a bit about your life." And before I know it, I'm crying. I'm shaking with tremendous emotion pulsating through my body. I'm really angry, and I didn't realize I had anger in my body. And then I'm crying again, and then I'm angry, and then I'm sad, and I'm angry, and it's just this roller coaster of emotion. And I remember at the very end, he said to me, "Anyway, that's our time done." And I said, "You can fuck off." I said, "I've just started." And I felt that there was just this tsunami of energy in my body, of emotion that I had never really connected with. I'd been around the peripheral of it many, many times, but I'd never really connected with it in a meaningful way. And I knew about some of it here in my head, but I hadn't necessarily felt it in my body and accepted it and allowed it to emerge. And that was the first time. And up to that point, there was an interesting trend in my life. Like, no matter what I did, it was never quite enough. Probably now in hindsight, because I realized I wasn't enough, and I just didn't have a whole lot of peace of mind. It was very much a doing, chasing energy, trying to prove to other people, trying to prove to myself, and just trying to get along. But there was just this pushing energy the whole time. And I remember coming outside, and I used to meet this therapist in his home, and I remember standing outside, and I bent over and I put my hands on my thighs, and I kind of leaned over, and I was afraid I'd vomit. Sorry about the details, because I was afraid every organ would come out of my body, because it was that frightening, and that it wasn't even the emotion that was that frightening. It was the level of emotion and how unaware I was of its presence. So there is an increasing awareness that I'm experiencing, and that is I'm increasingly meeting men and women, but primarily entrepreneurial men, who are successful, who have emotion that is unexpressed. And it comes out under the much more socially acceptable term, under frustration. And they don't admit they're angry. And if the conversation of anger is brought to the table, they will very quickly deny the fact that they're angry. And they will take it quite personally and say, "Well, I'm not an angry person," of which I didn't suggest they were an angry person. What I'm asking them is it possible that they're carrying anger, and it's expressing itself in a much more passive, controlled way through the lens of frustration? And ultimately there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of real tension in their bodies, and it comes out in really subtle ways, but also in ways that I can pick up and I can notice. And the key thing is here, I'm noticing it, and that's no good because they've got to notice it. And beyond the anger, there's often a sadness. And none of us want to experience sadness. We certainly don't want to be seen to experience sadness. And we might do it in a quiet moment. We do it when no one's watching, but we're not going to do it in a public setting necessarily. But let's imagine that you're sitting here today and you're listening to this, and maybe for some of you it's not relevant, but I wouldn't be too quick to say this doesn't appeal to me because I'm not an angry person. Rather than, I would love you to position this as, well, I keep telling myself it doesn't appeal to me, but is it possible that I'm carrying emotion of anger that I'm unaware of, like I was? That perhaps I'm carrying sadness that I'm unaware of, rather than justifying either one, justifying it away, or two is, yeah, I'm angry because of this, this, and this, and justifying the anger. Normally, we're not truly in touch with the reason we're angry, and why that's important to us, and why we're getting angry, and for how long have we been suppressing ourselves, biting our lip. So if you find that there's a lot of emotion in your body, and what I'm talking about here is emotion, there's nothing to be ashamed of. There is nowhere on earth you need to basically shy away from feeling emotion. It's the human experience, particularly anger, because it is so vilified in society, and yet is such a raw, beautiful emotion in so many ways. And it should not be vilified. It should be accepted. It should be spoken about. It should be talked about. It should be expressed, obviously within reason and in a safe environment, etc. But what I've experienced with a lot of entrepreneurs is they're angry because they find themselves in situations where they don't want to be. They're not sharing their truth. They're not speaking up. They're biting their lip. They're staying in an organization or business doing work that's kind of killing them, and it's killing their spirit and it's killing their creativity. They're living in a place they feel that they are sacrificing who they are for somebody else. They're trying to be a peacekeeper. They're trying to keep everybody happy, which simply doesn't work. They're compromising themselves at such a core level that they're getting more and more and more frustrated, and it's turning into this expression called anger. The other side of it is that it also could be very simply something in the past that they have chosen not to shine a light on, didn't know they needed to shine a light on, that they've suppressed a period of life, a trauma, or a series of traumas that happened over a long period of time, and they haven't honored that within themselves. And I often feel that and experience that people are angry with one or both of their parents, but then spend years justifying and protecting their parents from the very thing they're angry at them about. And they feel that if they get angry at their parents, even just themselves, like writing about it and talking about it, that actually in some way, shape, or form it's disloyal, and it actually creates separation from their parents. In my experience, if you get in touch with the real emotion, you can process the emotion and actually build a more cohesive, more beautiful, more connected relationship with those people. So it's actually not the way we think it's going to play out necessarily. And there's various ways, there's various reasons that people can be angry. But the reason I'm recording this is that I want to throw a few different ideas and possibilities at the table. The primary one is that you're carrying unexpressed emotion. And what happens is that compounds over a period of time. One, it compounds in our bodies and it actually creates sickness. Two is it creates frustration to the point where we're in a more reactive state rather than we're in reaction to something rather than in relationship to it. And number three is it just siphons away joy and presence and peace of mind. And I think one of the most beautiful aspirational things for anybody is to me, success is peace of mind. Where I don't always achieve that, but to peace of mind is where you feel really at peace within yourself for periods of time or prolonged periods of time. And when you don't, yes, there are external stress points that actually can take away from it sometimes. But also I think there's an unease inside of us because of what it is we're carrying. So at the very, very basic level, I would love you to journal about this and just write down anger, write down sadness, write down frustration, just write about it. And if I was angry, what would I be angry about? If I was sad, I'm probably not, but if I was, what would I be sad about? And give yourself permission to feel the things that you feel rather than deny the things that you feel. And don't when you find yourself in your head justifying these feelings, just give yourself permission to jump out of your head. Don't rationalize it. Don't try to justify it away. Don't try to explain it. Try to land into the emotion and to experience it. It's just part of the human experience, this idea of feeling. And so that's number one. Number two is take space. I've been really on this space thing, particularly not space as in up there, but space as in spaciousness in our lives and being out in nature and without our technology, and just allowing ourselves to feel into the edges of all of us rather than the parts of us that feel safe. Therapy. Go to a therapist. I like psychotherapy. I think go to a psychotherapist and sign up for 6 sessions, and do not find me on the streets or meet me and bump into me. Go, yeah, I was going to do the therapy thing, but I couldn't find a therapist I could relate to. That's all about control. That's about you finding the therapist you can manipulate, or finding the therapist that's going to listen to the story you want rather than extract the story that you need to share with the world. A bad therapist is better than no therapist at all. So don't get caught up in finding the right one. Is it a man or a woman? Do they do this? Do they do that? Do they believe in God? Do they not? Do they eat? Are they vegan? Are they not? Do they do yoga? Who gives a shit? Just go and talk to somebody about your stuff. Book at least 6 sessions. Do that. And just see what emerges, and go in with the intention that you're open to the energies and the emotions that are in your body to come out into the world and to dance and to play and to show you who you really are. Because those things, you don't want those things to define you, but they're already defining you if they're in your body and you haven't brought them out into the world and you haven't fully embodied them, so to speak. They're already running everything. They're already running the decisions. They're the mothership, regardless of whether you think that or not. And if it's available to you and you want to, get on a plane, come to Ireland, get in a car and drive across Ireland, get on a train and come down and come to the West Coast and come to the Brave Castle and do some beautiful work on yourself so you can go out into the world and to do the things and to be the person that you were meant to be, so you can create a bigger impact in your own life and the lives of the people around you, and to be the inspiration, not just by what you do, but who you are at your core as a parent, as an example. It's one of the great joys I get from the work I do. It's not that people report that their business is better and their lives are better, but in actual fact, they become a better version of themselves and that people around them notice that. So come to my work, or go do your own work, or do it with somebody else. That's entirely up to you. But don't be afraid of what you're carrying. You've been carrying it for a long time, most likely, and continuing to carry it. There's a significant burden and there's a significant price to pay for that. And often we're unaware of that. And I think if we all knew what the price was, if we could write it out for you in a piece of paper, said this is the price for carrying that emotion for far too long, you'd probably do something about it. But when we're unaware of its presence, then there's not a lot of impetus in terms of actually carving out the time to do this. So there you go. Hope you're well wherever in the world you are, and stay connected, and we'll talk soon. Bye.